Today we're tackling a topic that's become quite the conversation piece in advertising, pinkwashing. It's when companies wear a rainbow badge, so to speak, signaling support for the LGBTQ community, but sometimes without much substance behind the gesture. So now we have experts here with us who will help strip back those layers, challenge the fluff, and get real about making an impact. Get ready for an eye-opening discussion that will challenge perceptions and inspire action. Please welcome on stage Joshua David. Joshua, where are you at? You mic'd up? Joshua in the house? No, Josh? Okay. Let's see. Our next subject is Fireside Chat. Advertisers, it's time to stop pinkwashing and make a real impact. We have speakers today. Joshua David, are you in the house?
Check.
Joshua? What about Palak Jindal? Are you in the house? Come on up. Did you get mic'd up? And then we also have Ashley Calderon. Get mic'd up. You guys are going to teach us about this new subject.
1, 2.
Fireside Chat. Advertisers, it's time to stop pinkwashing and make a real impact. Coming to the stage. No Joshua David, but we have Palak Jindal and Ashley Calderon. Palak works for the Kelly School of Business at Indiana University. Ashley Calderon is the sole proprietor of the Golden Lotus.
Just waiting. 1, 2. 1, 2.
Are we ready? Yeah, come on up, guys. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Come on. Okay, so Ashley's running late and Joshua's not here, so okay. Thank you. All right, guys, without any further ado, these two speakers. Come on up, guys.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, feel free to get learned.
Okay. Does my mic work? Okay. Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay, well, since I've already introduced myself once for the Fireside Chat, I'm happy to moderate this one. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So my name is Palak Jindal. I'm a student at Kelly School of Business at Indiana University. I'm a senior and I'll be graduating this May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
And tell us what does it mean when you hear pinkwashing?
So
As a topic.
pinkwashing, basically, it's when companies and marketers use rainbow colors during Pride months to support, like to show that they're supporting LGBTQ communities and like genders, but then they do actions that is quite opposite to it. They're kind of pinkwashing it. That's what it means.
Which we've seen quite a bit in the past couple of years. So tell me, maybe let's give a couple examples of maybe some brands that have done that recently.
I think the biggest one that comes to my mind would be Bud Light. The controversy
say
they
so.
had with Dylan Mulvaney, and it was pretty big. And I think what these companies fail to understand is that maybe in the short term they do get profits out of this, but in the long term, as you were talking about authenticity and everything, it destroys the brand image much more than it helps them.
So in that specific example for Bud Light, which I think we're all familiar with that, they lost a ton in their stock price from that, and their CMO ended up having to resign over it.
And they like made bunch of public apologies, and they have been like remedying that through different ad campaigns and stuff. So they not only lost stock, but they also had to put a ton of money back into redefining their image, which is really sad. And their competitor Modelo
Yeah.
like took over the entire market for them, which is I don't even like Modelo beers.
Yep. And Target at the same time did a very similar type of activity where they also put out some makeup, I believe, that also had issues
Yeah,
for
they did
social.
that. A lot of companies do it. Like even giants like YouTube does it. They show that they're supporting the community, the LGBTQ plus community, and then they practice in countries where they ban users like that. Uber does it.
Yep.
There's so many examples right now, and I mean, especially with Gen Z getting into the power, with most of the transactions made by Gen Z, we need to realize that these people care about what a brand says to them. So we need to start focusing our, you know, like the advertisements and our the company's thoughts towards them.
So I think there might be, if I'm hearing you correctly, there's kind of two issues at hand here. There's one where the advertiser is potentially trying to create something, a product or bring something to market. And then there's another issue of maybe the influencer that is going a little bit off script. I know there was also the incident where there was a social media influencer that had an issue with makeup with L'Oreal, and it just went bananas, and it actually ended up helping L'Oreal in that case. But from an authenticity standpoint, it really eroded their brand equity. So maybe talk about a little bit of those two issues of from a brand standpoint, how do you stay authentic and how do you make sure that you're having a voice and not teetering too far away from that?
I think my response to that would be not every brand needs to like I don't believe that, but in a sense, not every brand needs to support every community and every cause. Pick your battles and stick to them. Just because someone you know is doing something, that doesn't mean you need to do it. Uh, what is your company about? What is it that you want the customers to see? Because every brand has a different perception,
Mhm.
and you trying to like dabble a little bit in everything is just going to destroy you.
And then for the Budweiser example for Bud Light, in that specific case too, I believe they waited a very long time to actually make any organizational changes, and they supported the CMO and the VP for quite a bit of time. And then that ended up really eroding their brand equity so much more, and their market share substantially tanked from it. They were number one in the market, and then Bill Gates put money into what was it, Heineken, thinking that that was going to help too at the same time.
That is a really interesting example, honestly. I think that is also an extreme. Not every company who does pinkwashing goes through that.
Yep.
That was one thing that recently happened, and it like blasted away. Uh, but like even in general, just during Pride months, having your company logos in rainbow is not equality. It's not changing anything. If you want to make a change, then do it. Just don't like boast about it and then do nothing.
Yep. So let's talk about maybe for Pride Month then for a second. So brands that show up during Pride Month and are doing specific advertising or they're partnering with influencers on social media for Pride Month and then substantially pull back on any of that the next month and do almost a reverse. What have we seen? What does that do to the brand?
Um, I think um I think it's like a game of roulette. You have small wins.
Hmm.
You get some new customers. They're like, okay, they're supporting me. I should buy from this brand. And then when it's time to take a substantial stance or do something, they back out, and maybe they lost a very loyal customer to them,
Right.
which will never come back. And it's like a generational thing. So if I have been hurt by a brand, I'm not going to tell my kids or anyone in my circle to go and use that brand. I
Right.
think it destroys their word of mouth credibility a lot.
Right. Right. And then I think on the flip side too, with Netflix had an issue recently too, where all of the employees stood up and tried to push away certain content because they also thought that that was an issue. And in that case, I believe Netflix said no, we're not gonna pull the content. It was comedy for Dave Chappelle, and they said no, we're not going to pull the content. The content stays, and a lot of the employees almost left over it, and it was during Pride Month that that happened. Now, in that case, Netflix wasn't actually advertising. They weren't doing anything for Pride Month, but their actions, the employees felt like were going against what was happening. So it's a little different. It's an organizational issue, but it does bleed into PR and into other issues. So maybe if you can talk a little bit
I
about
think
that.
about that is that companies like Netflix or that are so much in the limelight that whatever they do can be turned into a controversy.
Yes.
And um, uh, I think in that case, you cannot, like, that's what I'm trying to say, that you cannot support every cause. And if
Yes.
that's something that Netflix wants to do, then okay, fine. Um, the employees have the right to, leave over it. And it also goes into how you structure your company, what kind of employees
Yes.
you're hiring. Um, and so if it wants to hire creatives who are in the LGBTQ plus community, then it should be aware of that and take actions according to it.
So if a brand wanted to get involved, if they wanted to have a social cause to back, but if I'm hearing you correct, let's not be everything to everybody across every brand because you lose authenticity and you potentially diminish your brand in the process. Then what would you say are the ways that they should go about determining which ones to go after?
Um, I think it goes into the company's mission statement. What is their next 5-year plans? What is it that, I mean, it also depends on the kind of product you're launching or the service you're launching.
Mm-hmm.
So in the example of Bud Light, it could have had a very successful next 10 years of its life without having Mulvaney do an influencer post, because that's not its target audience.
Right.
And so I think it comes down to understanding what you want and what does the customer want. And then I think also it also depends on the kind of people who are in power, who are making the decisions. So making sure that someone who's diplomatic and understands all facets before making a decision would be like the right course to go on it, I guess.
Yeah, it gets difficult because some of these situations become canaries in the coal mine, where it's something very small and then it turns out to be something very big. I mean, actually, the Bud Light situation is a good example of that, where it was not in every single store. It was not major. It was actually an influencer, and they made one six pack, and that was it. And that one six pack turned into $1 billion problem for them. I mean, I laugh, but it really was $1 billion problem for them, and it continues to still be. And I know that brands today, um, my company, we do a lot of work with them where we are continuously pressure testing how much do you push the boundaries? Because in today's world, you can't just you want to let the creative be the creative and lead it, and you don't want to stifle the creativity. And in a lot of cases you're trying to break through the clutter of and you're trying to get a message across. We were doing work for a pharma company recently, and they wanted to push something for breast cancer, and they wanted to show women and being really empowered, and they wanted to show on a mass ad women that had gotten mastectomies during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that was supposed to be a very empowering thing. And that is pushing the boundaries. And that was a very powerful message that was coming across. But at the same time, that could easily, right, wrong time, just wrong person, wrong time that has 1 million followers, and you are screwed. And so you have to also, there's a balance as a company. Are you willing to really make that bet? And are you willing to really stand behind that? And sometimes
Yeah,
it can
I
be
think
very small, like a six pack.
I think it's a calculated risk, And I mean, obviously, we have so much data at this point and analysts who figured these things out. But uh, I think it goes beyond numbers and data points. You need to realize what the current trends in the society are, and
Yeah.
while you piggyback off of it, you also need to understand that um, your own statement, your own company should not change. Like, for example, there's this brand called Sanzo. They make sparkling water,
Uh-huh.
and they have this huge that they're Asian American with their flavors, with their branding, with their packaging, and everything. And imagine if that just tomorrow they're like, okay, now we support African American communities. They might get a few people to join them, but they would
Right.
lose a huge share of the market that they have already established. So going on to trends and trying new things, that's amazing, and every company should do that because that's innovation and that's what we are here for. But also knowing that not um, also knowing that where to draw the line. I think
Yes.
that comes to a very personal decision, and I think you should know when to draw the line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it becomes really tricky because inherently these brands, and I'll just pick on the really big brands, right, for a minute. Um, they have quarterly earnings. They have to hit quarterly numbers, and that's the name of the game. And so if they're trying to find a way to resonate more, and the way to resonate is through potentially social justice causes, that could be good. However, that can also feel very inauthentic because you are actually at the end of the day selling a product to them because you have to make a quarterly earning. Now the employees might be doing it for the right reasons, but the reality is I think today people sniff through that a lot. During COVID, there was such a focus on social justice causes, and rightfully so. However, I think the brands wanted to listen to their employees. They wanted to try to take on these social causes because their employees cared about these social causes. But there is a difference, I think, between the employee and the person and the brand itself. And the brand is there to monetize the brand and to generate revenue. And if you're generating revenue through a social cause, you have to be very careful about that because you are not a nonprofit at the end of the day.
I agree with you, but I also feel that this is a more long-term thing. When you plan a company, you don't think that, okay, I'm going to run it for 5 years and then it's over.
Right.
It's like a perpetual existence. And
We
so
would all love to be retired in 5 years, though, I think.
I haven't even started. I still have to graduate.
Hey, you got a 5-year plan, so you can start now.
Fair enough. Um, but these um, pinkwashing, the problem with pinkwashing is that you're pretending to support a cause and not actually making a difference.
Right.
And what employees and customers and everyone want is that if you are supporting a cause, then take action because these companies do have the
Hmm.
money to make a change. And that is where it all boils down to that are they willing to act on it or not?
Yes, yes, yes. And I think, the last panel that was talking about authenticity, I think it really plays into this quite well too, because I also think a big part of what you're talking about for pinkwashing too, especially with these large companies, they have employee organizations within the companies. And so they have diversity, they have DEI programs where, it can be anything from I remember I was in the women's and analytics program, and you have to foster other groups. But if that doesn't actually lead to anything and lead to change, and then they're putting out content in the same way, it potentially starts to erode a brand for what it is meant to be and what its voice is supposed to be in the marketplace. Because ultimately, the voice in the marketplace is X, Y, and Z, right? Like they have an archetype, they have a value proposition, they're supposed to go to market a certain way, and they should have a strategy for that. And the reality is, these things should either align to that and drive the social cause that supports that. Um, because if you start being too much to too many things, you're fractionalized.
True. And also, I think it goes beyond just one community. If, for instance, I'm going to talk about H&M for a second. They are like the leader in fast fashion, and they create like tons and tons of waste and
I know the
everything.
store here shut down. I was very sad when I walked by it earlier.
And at the same time, they're producing chemicals and everything. They have a sustainability department in their company. They're printing it out in their quarterly reports and in their annual reports and everything. The problem is that if you think that the consumer is stupid and that you just trying to put fancy words in it and make your logo green, then it's not going to help you in the long run. It is going to erode your image to the extent that people do not trust anything you put out. And then it ripples down. It goes from, okay, they're not sustainable. Maybe they're lying about the quality they use. Maybe the product is not good. And it all comes down to the product and the money. And then they're not willing to pay what you're asking them to.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Yeah. There's another brand which I will not. I'll. I'll. I won't say the name of it to keep the innocent. Well, I don't know how innocent, but um, they they were known for having um, bad plastics for their water bottles, and then they recently had to completely rebrand themselves into a different name and a different and go to market completely differently because it started to become so the undercurrent of it online was so much. And the problem today with social media, to your point, is that you can't control that. Once that is out, and especially for Gen Z and the social media, it's out and it spreads like wildfire. On TikTok, it's just like it goes and you in trouble.
I mean, it's a great thing. I am a huge supporter of social media because I'm 21 and I don't know the consequences of it. But uh,
Well, you don't know a world without it.
exactly, I've had a phone since I was in sixth grade, and
Yeah,
I've used it all my
it's
life.
crazy.
I wouldn't have friends if I didn't have social media. but
It's crazy, yeah. It's a different world.
but the thing is that you cannot change it now. Going in, like, in the future, social media is not going anywhere,
Yeah.
and neither are the companies. So the only way to deal with this is to coexist and to take benefit of a resource you have and understand the risks of it.
So, would you say, as I'll just ask you as a younger generation for this, I'll pick on you for a second, but would you say that your generation um, is doing research into the brands and the social causes? Because at that age, you said you're 21. So at that age for 21, you are developing your loyalties to brands right now. You haven't some brands I would say you might say that you've developed some loyalties to, but others you're probably still shopping around to figure out which ones you want to be loyal to. So in that, I know like when I was 21, it was probably cost and quality of the product. But would you say that you're also looking into social causes and authenticity of the brands?
Definitely. I think the thing with my generation is that we were brought into a world where we had overwhelming amount of options. Like,
Hmm.
we have not known a world without options. If you go to a supermarket, there's like 17 different kinds of water. And in that world, where do you differentiate? What's the differentiating factor? Because they all provide you quality. They're all some kind of prices and like it's within the range.
Right.
So I think at that point, that is what we're looking for. That, okay, there's 17 kinds of bottle, but this one, it uses sustainable measures. It uses good plastic. So let's do with this one.
So, how would you say you and your friends are looking at that? Are you researching it ahead of time?
Definitely. Also, it's a lot of influencer marketing. If I
Influencer
see,
marketing.
if I see influencer like, okay, yeah, it's the thing is that our word of mouth is on one platform. If you have TikTok, then everything you present on TikTok, the brand presence on TikTok, we're not.
TikTok is king, guys. You need to be on TikTok.
So it's the thing it boils down to is that if we think the influencer the brand picked
Hmm.
is credible, then we'll believe the brand is credible because we'll believe that the influencer did its research. Do you see what I'm?
Yes. And then what about industries? So let's take it from a brand and look to an industry now. So how do you feel about, are you thinking that some industries are authentic or inauthentic based on this idea of pinkwashing?
Definitely. Like, I think the biggest industry that comes to mind about this is agriculture, and like how there was a huge shift towards farmers market and
Yes.
family farming, organic products. Soon there will be a bigger shift to brands who do justice to their social causes. And I think that is going to happen very soon because, as I said, we do not have any more differentiating factors left. So, where do you, like, when you go to a supermarket, what makes you pick one product instead of the other off the shelf? And that is where the brand's social causes comes in, I think, for our generation.
So it's more so even than price or value of the product is social cause.
I don't think so because price is always going to be there.
Price is king.
Price is king.
Right.
But after that, I think it's a close second or third,
Mm,
how we perceive the brand. And I think these social causes, they play a major role in our perception of the brand.
interesting. Any questions from anybody?
Yes.
That's a great question. Right. Where's the line? Hmm.
It would be pinkwashing if you celebrate Women's History Month and do not hire any female employee. Or if you celebrate Black History Month and then uh, pay your African American employees less than your American employees. So that's where the line is. That's the point that if you're supporting a cause, if you're supporting a community, great. Every brand should do that. But then don't take actions that are starkly opposite to what you're supporting.
Did you have a question? Ooh. Cancel culture. So if cancel culture happens to a brand for Gen Z, um, does the brand ever get uncanceled?
Um, I mean, nothing is impossible. It's
But
hard,
it sounds real hard.
but it is hard. I think a good example for that would be Crocs. During the 2010s time, it took a huge hit. No one wanted to wear them. They were like weird, and then Crocs did a whole 360, like embrace your weird. Essentially, at that time, they did get cancelled in a way, not on social media, but they basically had to revise their entire brand image. So yes, it is possible. But I think if you're taking something away from this talk, it's that don't let it come to the point of getting into cancel culture, uh, because prevention is better than cure. And just try to be. It, it's not, I mean, I don't have a company, so it's easy for me to say this, but it's not that hard to stay true to a cause. You don't have to funnel millions of dollars into it, but if you are saying, just don't do actions that are, opposite of what you're trying to sell.
So if you believe in something and you practice it and you are hiring employees for it and you are focused on it, you should authentically celebrate that about who
Exactly.
you are,
Yeah.
but don't do something outside of that that
Exactly.
is different.
Yeah.
As for cancel culture, going back to that for a second, I think there's different parts of cancel culture too, especially for Gen Z, because I do see some influencers on TikTok. I'll just stick to that example for a second, that did get canceled and then somehow came back and now have just as many or even more followers than they did before. So I have seen Gen Z forgive and potentially even grow a base. I think in some cases it's about letting the fire die down a bit and just being quiet about it and letting it burn out. But also, there seems to be a fine line, and I, I'm not the one that has the answer to this, but there seems to be a fine line between apologetic and quiet. Um, Obviously, there needs to be apologies for whatever it is, but too apologetic in some cases seems to actually fuel cancel culture to some extent. And there is, to some extent, like you have to just quiet down the fire. I don't know what your perspective is because I do think some of that is flamed on TikTok and how the algorithm works and how it just you can just start seeing cancel culture just permeate, and then the problem with that becomes you think that that is so much larger a conversation out there in the real world than it actually is.
Definitely. I think my generation loves controversy. I think everyone loves controversy. And so when someone gets cancelled and they are profusely apologizing for it, people like to see that. People like to see powerful people on their
Mm,
knees apologizing, begging.
interesting.
And so that is why it keeps on going. The wave
Mm.
never dies down. But as you
It's
said,
like an adjustment of power.
yeah, exactly. It's the adjustment of power. And like if you're seeing someone on your screen every day living their best life, you're like,
You want to tamper that down a
you
little
want to
bit.
tamper that down. You want to like, okay, I'm not happy, why is this person happy?
Interesting.
And so sorry, go
No, no. So with cancel culture, you're saying that the that your generation doesn't like seeing that type of power being held, and if it feels like they have the power incorrectly, then and if maybe their apology is not authentic, it almost fuels the cancel culture even more to just like anchor and pull that down even quicker.
definitely. And it's also, I think, the thing with influencers and social media is that they hold a power over us which is very unconscious. If I'm opening my
Mm-hmm.
phone and I'm giving time to this person, I'm not doing it out of because I love this person, I'm doing it out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when something like this happens, there's a break in that habit and it comes off more potent than it would in any other
Mm-hmm.
instance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and I think also my generation understands that everyone makes mistakes, and that's why we're like so eager to forgive and move on, because God knows we're making a lot of mistakes and everyone is going to die. I'm just kidding, but that's the reason that if you're out there and you're like, okay, my bad, we're gonna fix this, but then and actually fix it,
Yeah,
it's water under the bed.
got it. Any other questions? No. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Jip, jip. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah,
Thank you,
of
ladies.
course.
Awesome.